Welcome to the deep dive. Today we have something really fascinating. We're looking at a source text that is so obscure, yet so bizarrely and chillingly prescient, it's almost hard to believe it's real.
It is. We're plunging into a 1906 prophetic document called The Great Red Dragon, or the Flaming Devil of the Orient.
And it was written by Cyrus Teed, who went by the messianic name Koresh.
Exactly. And it's so important to stress this right up front. This is the original Koresh. Decades later, David Koresh of the Branch Davidians. He notoriously adopted that exact same pseudonym,
Right.
which just shows you how far Teed's apocalyptic writings, which were often, frankly, plagiarized, really spread.
So what we're looking at here is not just some old book. It's this terrifyingly detailed roadmap of global collapse. I mean, Teed's vision, which he published when America was supposed to be in this golden age of peace and commerce, it predicts a U.S. civil war led by socialists.
Yeah.
A global war pitting the West against a rising Asia, and then the emergence of this, super scientific New Jerusalem in Florida, of all places.
And he lays out the justification right at the start. He argues that the world's end is coming because of unchecked capitalism. It's the system of competition, what he calls the inordinate commercial greed, which actuates all of the incentives of modern impulse.
So for him, the Christian era was ending because its whole financial system had abandoned its communistic roots.
That's his core argument.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that narrative. We want to see how Koresh blended, financial anxiety, geopolitical rivalries, extreme socialism, and this deep mysticism all into one grand prophecy.
And what that tells us about the anxieties that, we still see cycling back into our culture even today.
It's a synthesis that only a Gilded Age prophet could really produce.
Let's start with that American conflict, the one Teed believed would trigger everything else.
Okay.
Chapter 1 details the two opposing forces. On one side, you have the corporate powers, and this is an explicit, formalized alliance between Wall Street and Lombard Street in London.
Wait, really? Wall Street and London's financial center literally teaming up. That sounds like a Gilded Age conspiracy theory made real. What was their agenda?
Total global control. He describes them aiming for a complete consolidation of Christendom just to seize ultimate commercial power. And even more sinister, they wanted to, and I'm quoting here, eradicate popular rights. Why? Because they believe the masses have no capacity for the conduct of either business or government.
Wow. I mean, that is a perfect reflection of that ruthless, anti-democratic, industrialist mindset from the early 1900s.
It is. The plan was to use government just to direct the economy and keep the money power centralized.
So that's one side, this powerful corporate force, but then standing against them, we see the rise of the social army.
Right. And this force is led by a man named Alexander Clinton. He's described as a Labor Federation Napoleon, who also uses aliases like Margrave. And Clinton's big idea was that, simple local labor unions were just too weak.
So what was his strategy?
It was the fusion of labor unionism and pure socialism into one highly centralized militaristic command structure. That was the key.
So the unions were just a tool for him.
Exactly. Labor unionism was just the means to an end. The explicit goal was socialistic propaganda, the total overthrow of church and state, and creating a universal, non-religious government based on social equality.
That's a huge distinction. This wasn't just a strike for better pay. This was a revolution, an ideological purge.
A total purge. And Chapter 10 describes the war starting. It's declared by the social army fighting for our property and our homes against the governments run by millionaires.
And the first battle is horrific. The Battle of Chicago.
The scale is just immense. The combined corporate forces, U.S. and foreign troops, had about 800,000 men concentrated around the city.
800,000.
And Teed describes this allied army being completely annihilated in the first big clash. It was this stunning, decisive victory for the Federation that just dissolves the central government's ability to fight back.
It's so striking when you think about 1906 America. You had massive wealth disparity, violent labor actions like the Haymarket Affair. Teed just took those anxieties and projected them into an immediate, violent civil war.
He saw the system collapsing from within.
And it speaks directly to some current fears, deep political divisions, economic instability, and a U.S. civil war starts, led by socialists, while the whole world is basically just watching.
But the war doesn't stay internal for long. Just as Clinton's social army is winning against the corporate powers, the prophecy pivots to a terrifying global conflict.
Right, the Oriental perspective.
The very threat that Wall Street and Lombard Street were so afraid of in the first place.
So you go from a financial conspiracy to a global race war. How does he frame that? He uses a lot of biblical imagery, right?
Very heavy. He paints Japan as the initial trigger, the rising sun nation. He calls it a power like a lamb, suggesting this kind of deceptive new instance in terms of military might.
Kind of like a lamb.
But then Japan weaponizes the sheer scale of its neighbor, making China the dragon power. The idea is that China would just overrun the world with its multitudes. The combined Asiatic force is explicitly aiming for the total destruction of the West.
And the war starts in a way that sounds less like 1906 and more like, I don't know, science fiction.
It really does. General Clinton's army, fresh off their victory at home, they first use a submarine navy in the Great Lakes to destroy the Allied fleet at the Battle of Erie.
A submarine navy in the Great Lakes.
Okay. But the Asiatic powers respond with something much, much more terrifying. The really decisive disaster hits on the Pacific coast. The U.S. Navy is drawn out to sea, and they're trapped and annihilated by something Teed calls a vortical abyss.
Wait, what? A vortical abyss? You mean like a whirlpool that just swallows the entire fleet?
That's exactly it.
How does he even rationalize that level of destruction?
Well, he describes it as being created by a marvelously constructed galvanic dynamo that transmits wireless power from the Hawaiian Islands.
Wireless power.
Which, at this point in the story, are occupied by the Oriental forces. This isn't just a weapon, it's Teed's unique, kind of proto-scientific view of physics at work.
So this is where his own radical scientific ideas start bleeding into the narrative.
Absolutely. He believed he'd mastered electromagnetism and power transfer, and this naval disaster is the proof.
That is just wild. The U.S. fleet is literally sucked into the ocean by a giant wireless vortex, and the invasion that follows is immediate.
And total. Millions of Japo-Chinese troops sweep over Europe and America with the stated goal of destroying every single white male.
So even Clinton's victorious social army, which is now 7 million strong, is forced into this desperate retreat toward a final safe haven in Florida.
It's a horrifying scenario he paints. The U.S. wins its internal class war only to be completely crushed by an overwhelming external enemy. The yellow peril of Western gold greed is replaced by the literal yellow peril of invasion.
And that retreat brings us to the final act, the city of restoration, the fulfillment of the Millennium Prophecy.
Yeah.
This last stronghold, the Magic City in Florida, is the ultimate safe haven. It's described as this wealthy, scientifically advanced, and aggressively communistic center.
This is Teed's perfect society brought to life. It operates on what he called prosperity without money.
No money.
No wages, no salaries, no fees. He envisioned labor being reduced to recreation by using machinery for everything. The focus wasn't profit, it was equitable distribution, maximum production, minimal human effort.
A socialist paradise protected by advanced tech. But the social rules sound incredibly strict. I read that the population is split into 2 orders.
That's right, the celibate order and the marital order. The celibates were the highest class. They were dedicated to conserving sex potency for immortal life.
Okay. And the marital order.
They were strictly monogamous, but marriage and even procreation were regulated by what he called astrochronological science.
Astrochronological science. That sounds a lot like eugenics mixed with astrology.
That's precisely what it is. He called it stirp culture scientific procreation. It was guided by astrological charts to predetermine an offspring's characteristics, all about creating a perfect new race.
And this magic city is surrounded by 15 million invaders near Lakeland. So they need more than just social planning. They need a defense.
Which Teed provides. His most complex invention, the non-Gravo wireless power aerial navy.
But what now?
Airships. Airships moved by wireless power from massive dynamos. They've conquered gravity using the same physics that sank the U.S. fleet.
So it's an anti-gravity air force.
And it's led by a figure who sounds like she's straight out of Pulp Fiction. The Princess Admiral Adelaide Colton.
Okay, let me get this straight. General Clinton's army is surrounded, and the rescue comes from his celibate former love interest, the Princess Admiral, leading a fleet of anti-gravity airships.
It's an absolutely operatic climax.
And the final battle is called the Rain of Fire.
It's the fulfillment of the Gog and Magog prophecy. Adelaide Colton's fleet showers the invaders with alchemical fireballs. But these aren't normal explosives.
How so?
They're harmless until they're heated electrically by that same wireless power technology, and then they explode with tremendous force. The entire Oriental army and its fleet are annihilated in a fire that literally falls from the skies, securing the New Jerusalem.
The physical victory, though, that's just a precursor to the real transformation, the spiritual one.
Exactly. And that brings us to the mystical basis for all of Koresh's work. His entire system came from his illumination back in 1869, which he supposedly achieved in his electro-alchemical laboratory.
He wasn't just a prophet. He was trying to be a physical scientist of the divine. So tell us about this alchemical discovery.
Teed claimed he actually demonstrated the law of transmutation, that he turned base metals into gold. He found the philosopher's stone.
Okay.
And this achievement led to his withdrawal from the world and a vision where he met the Divine Mother, or Goddess. He defined her as the formulation of thy maternity, the feminine spiritual environment of God.
So alchemy led him to divinity, and that established his core doctrine, this idea of theocrasis. We mentioned it, but let's define it.
Theocrasis is the ultimate spiritual mechanism. It means subtle combustion. The physical body undergoes dematerialization and translates into an immortal state through fire.
So a literal physical dissolution into the cosmic order.
Yes. He believed Jesus achieved this, absorbing his physical self into the spiritual life of his followers.
And that explains the final fate of our heroes, Clinton and Colton. After the Magic City is safe, they undergo this incorruptible dissolution, theocrasis, and they just disappear.
They literally burn themselves up into the spiritual essence of the new world. And from that dissolution arises the ultimate product of his prophecy, a new, majestic, singular personality called Alexander the Greater.
Alexander the Greater.
This new being is described as two-in-one, male and female, in a single individual form. This figure fulfills the messianic law and becomes the prime counselor of the new universal kingdom.
So the end of the war isn't democracy. It's a spiritual empire ruled by a new, self-created Messiah who's a blend of the old heroes and who rules this kingdom.
The new highest order, the sons of God. He calls them the virgin, which translates to virgins or man-women, meaning these sexually conserved individuals. They possess the power to appear and disappear at will.
And the world's ultimate fate.
Total subjugation to this new spiritual, socialist, imperial power. It enforces absolute order, scientific procreation, that's stirp culture, and permanently eliminates the entire competitive system. The destruction was just the birth pangs of the universe bringing forth its perfect children.
You know, stepping back, the foresight in this 1906 text is genuinely staggering. Koresh saw a world destabilized by commercial greed, a socialist-led civil war in the U.S., and this massive geopolitical conflict with rising Asian powers. The parallels, whether you look at his time or our modern anxieties about wealth division and global conflict, they're just chilling.
It's the ultimate paradox of apocalyptic literature, isn't it? The source correctly identifies these profound real-world pressures, financial collapse, civil strife, international tension, but the final solution is entirely cosmic and alchemical.
Right. It's not political or military.
Not at all. It requires the physical, mystical dissolution of the old world and the birth of a new, scientifically designed race.
Which brings us to the final and, frankly, the wildest piece of the Koreshian puzzle. We mentioned his radical physics, right? The dynamo that swallowed the U.S. fleet and powered the anti-gravity airships?
Yes.
Cyrus Teed, the man who gave us this terrifyingly accurate vision of geopolitical collapse, believed that the great battles of the impending scientific revolution were being fought over the very shape of the Earth.
That's right. His entire system, his physics, his alchemy, his prophecy, it all relied on a single geodetic truth that he claimed to have proven.
Which was?
He insisted that the Earth is a concave sphere, a literal hollow globe. He believed we are living on the inside surface.
On the inside.
And he believed that understanding this reality was the ultimate secret behind the cosmic cataclysm and the restoration of the new world.
So if a century-old prophecy about global financial collapse and a war between a socialist America and a rising Far East came this close to reality, what does it suggest that the final piece of this visionary puzzle, the thing that powers the new world's technology and dictates its spiritual transformation, is the fundamental physical shape of the world itself? That's something to mull over. We'll see you next time.